for being here, Jay. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to talk all about cybersecurity
Yes.
and maybe a little bit about AI.
Right.
Tell me, please, by most accounts, the number of cyber attacks, the severity of those attacks is going up. We see extortion, we see ransomware incidents. What do you see as the state of the security landscape right now? And what are the most troubling trends as we head into 2026?
Yeah. Many times we all seem surprised that attacks are going up. But think of this way. Bad guys want a piece of action without working hard. They will go where the money is. All business is moving online. So for attacks to move online is a natural thing. So I don't think there'll be any slowdown of attacks because that's where the money is. The question is, are we preparing ourselves to handle those things? And that's our collective job as cyber providers and partners who enable those services. It can be done well. I get asked many times, especially with AI coming on, the attacks can be done a lot more easily, more automated. Do bad guys have an upper hand, or do providers have an upper hand? And my belief is that there are lots of smarts in provider companies to really build technology. I worry about large enterprises who have a lot of inertia. Bad guys have no inertia. So it's our job together as partners to work with enterprises to get them moving, to move at a faster pace to adopt new innovations. Otherwise, the risk grows.
Yeah. What about the most troubling ones? I mean, we see a lot of these headlines recently about, like, say, supply chain attacks, and the one that was in the news recently was the Salesloft Drift one that ended up causing a lot of trouble for Salesforce customers. I know you guys had some dealings with that as well. When you look at these kinds of breaches and these headlines, what can partners do? Like, how can you secure yourself against your supplier's supplier?
Right. The problem is the architecture we built 30 years ago. What do I mean by that? If you think about it, go back to early 90s, when industry agreed upon a standards-based TCP IP-based network. Cisco was a young company at that time. They built great routers so you could connect your data center to every branch office. You built a mesh network. You went to the branch office, you connected to the network, and you could move laterally, find applications, and connect. Life was wonderful. Probably the biggest breakthrough in networking and distributed computing. Now, malware has discovered that the design feature of the network is to move left and right. So the malware gets on the network, it moves left and right, finds high-value assets, encrypts them, and asks for ransom. So it's exploiting the design of the network. And what have we tried to do? Well, 30 years ago, we came at the notion of security using firewalls and VPNs. What's a firewall? It's a moat, it's a gate. It's trying to secure the network. This network is trusted, everything is untrusted. The problem is a trusted computer, a laptop in a home on a branch, which is infected. Now the malware is trusted too. They go around, they cause issues. Almost all issues are related to the lateral movement of the network or of the malware on the network. We have to go away from this mesh network architecture for network security architecture to a zero trust architecture where everything is an island and only right party can connect to right things. I'll give you a metaphor because this thing can start getting very confusing. On the network, not being on the network. If I come to see you at your headquarters, generally with a large company, they stop me at the reception, they check my ID, they give me a badge. And if they said, Jay, go to 7th floor, room 23, that's where your meeting is, no escort needed. Once I'm in, I can go where I need to go. Sure, some rooms are locked, I can't get in. Some are open, I can snoop around and leave. That's like being on the network, either in the office or doing a VPN from home and getting on the network. Not good. The better approach would be Once they check my ID and give me a badge, they would say, Jay, stop. You'll be escorted to your meeting room and meeting room only. In fact, you don't even need to know which floor or which room your meeting is. And if I go to see someone in Defense Department, they'll say, we're going to blindfold you and take you to your meeting room, and blindfold you and take you up. In this metaphor, each room is like an application. The building is like your data center or your cloud. You get taken to one-to-one. You're never on the network. There's no lateral movement. There's no such thing that one machine got infected and everything got infected. So in this model, what we invented was, we are a switchboard. We are a policy engine. We call it Zero Trust Exchange. A user comes to us. We say, who are you? Where are you going? Are you allowed to go? If all conditions meet, we make a one-to-one connection. Maybe even further simplify this metaphor of a phone switchboard years ago. If you called and say, I want to talk to John, you got connected to John and John only. And you say, I want to talk to the President of the US. He says, sorry, you're not allowed to. The connection gets dropped. That's the foundational change in how things are done. Inertia is so powerful that industry is taking so long to adopt zero trust. If we adopt zero trust, probably 80% of the issues will go away. Now, there's still identity and all those things involved. But the question is not the phishing or not. The question is, what's the blast radius of once infection happens? If the blast radius is restricted to a branch or a given application, you're better off. That's how we have to think about security. That's where security has to be thought through differently. And we all together have to do a good job in moving our enterprise customers to this new world of zero trust.
It's obvious from the way you just answered that how adamant you are that VPNs and firewalls are really part of the security problem. And I was just curious about
They have lived their useful life.
They have lived their useful life. I was curious about the recent Cisco firewall vulnerabilities that hit the news, specifically the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency actually had an emergency directive about them. What did you think when you saw that story come out?
Yeah, I mean, we've only seen 3 directives from CISA in the past several years. There was one about Palo Alto firewalls in 24. There's one about Ivanti, VPN, and the Cisco. Now, the issue is not to say they don't write good software. Software can have issues. Zscaler software can have issues too. But there are 2 problems with the kind of issues we're seeing with Ivanti or Palo Alto or Cisco thing. One, their appliances, they're sitting out there somewhere. The patching always lags behind for various reasons. If there are 300, 400,000 firewalls sitting out there, they're very vulnerable. I mean, the CV level was 9 point something. That means if you reach it, you can actually compromise it, no effort needed. That's one part. The patching becomes very, very hard. And many customers, they say, I have this pair of firewalls in a high availability environment. I can't take a chance to bring my plant up. That's one part. And the second part is they are doing network security. They're part of this network architecture. Once someone gets on the firewall, compromise the firewall, that firewall is part of the network. The malware moves laterally, finds other things, and infects others. That's why having the network security architecture is irrelevant. In fact, I like to say, don't do network security. If you think about it, what is there to secure in a network? The packets are flowing and the packets are encrypted. It's all about securing data. Data sits with applications, data sits with servers or endpoints. By making sure that right endpoint talks to right server, right application, we secure data. That's the mindset change we need to make. It was meaningful to do network security early on. When network was small, it was very confined, you controlled it, life was wonderful. But at the scale we are dealing with, everyone's everywhere, everything is everywhere. Going away from network security to focusing on securing the data, right entity talk to right entity is what we need. But also in the cloud architecture, you can actually fix any of these issues a lot faster if you offer it as a service, because you don't have to tell the customer, go and find all the firewalls and patch them. So that's why the world has to move more and more as a service, but there's a difference between the two services. Take Siebel versus Salesforce. Siebel software tried to actually mimic Salesforce. They tried to spin up virtual machines and say, I can run Siebel in the cloud. Then Salesforce, but clean multi-tenant architecture. You could spin it up. You could have a POC running in a few months. Firewalls are trying to do the same thing. They spin up the virtual machine or fire on the cloud, but then you got so many machines. Every virtual machine has to be updated, patched, upgraded, because it's like a separate system. That's why trying to this kind of stuff doesn't work. That's why when I started Zscaler, I got inspiration from Mark Benioff. I saw how Salesforce was done in a clean architecture. And that's what allows us to scale. Otherwise, you'll be trying to build Netflix by taking DVD players and spinning them in the cloud. That really doesn't work.
What's the opportunity then for your channel partners as they see these old VPN and firewall installations, and what's the opportunity going forward for them, even from a services perspective?
So we are a very channel-focused company. In fact, my first startup, Secure IT, here in Atlanta, was about security services. We would design, architect, sell, deploy, support firewalls and VPNs. So, firewalls, VPN was a starting point of my entrepreneurial journey. So it's important. So we did all of that stuff. Partners play a very important role because customers need help. Otherwise, things sit out there, they don't get deployed. If they get deployed, they're not properly deployed. There's an opportunity, but opportunity has to change. That's part of my discussion has been many channel partners. Firewalls. If you were to deploy 120 firewalls in 120 locations, you look at the services for deployment, which is great. Now, when you move to a cloud service, the amount of services for deployment for just that functionality will be smaller. But there are so many other opportunities to do zero trust, for example. You start with identity. There's an opportunity for partners to help the customer deploy rationalized identity. We are integrated services. We offer DLP next to it, sandbox, and a whole range of services that are needed. So you move away from focusing on deploying and patching to offering higher value services. That's why I think channel has also to change. The world is moving at a faster pace. The box companies either move or they kind of go away. The services you offer are adapting and changing. So you need to make a conscious effort. I make a conscious effort to say, how is Zscaler transforming as the time is going on? So ask yourself, question yourself, am I trying to do things the same way I did 10 years ago? Right? If it's the same, then something isn't right because the world is moving at a faster pace. The kind of services, the kind of help customer needs is different than what they needed 10 years ago.
And it's more profitable. Zero trust, the paradigm is more profitable, you'd say, for your channel partners?
I think if you do the right services, you're more profitable. I can tell you for every dollar Zscaler gets in a subscription service, there are $2 to $4 that can be had for services. Now, why and where is that? Let me walk you through. It is not that Zscaler deployment itself takes 4 times the money. It's the simplification of the stuff we do. What is today's network? Everything is connected to everything, SD-WAN, MPLS, all the mesh network. Then they got these regional communication hubs with a lot of boxes sitting. There are 2 hubs in Americas, 2 hubs in EMEA, 2 hubs in APJ. All this traffic comes to the hubs, then goes throughout there. In our zero trust architecture, we are essentially the hub. We have 170 hubs for you. You no longer need any of the hubs. Look at all the stuff that's sitting there. Customers need partners who can remove a lot of clutter that's sitting out there. Every branch office many times has 2 firewalls. Not needed. There's that. Elimination of a lot of point products to save money is important. almost every CIO you talk to today is under cost pressure to save money. And they ask for it. I think you can play a very good role in identifying and work with us. In fact, we have proper plans. We actually have programs to quantify cost savings. But we are not a services company. We need partners who can simplify all those things. But for that, you need to invest a little bit. You need the mindset change and commitment. Part of the challenge everyone else has is, as the market changes, you want to keep the old one, and you hope you get the new one. Okay. How do you make a conscious effort and say, I'm going to focus on some of these things to move and build a business? It's always hard to make change when you've got a running business, but we all have to adapt and make some bets. I'll tell you one of the interesting bets I made when I started my first company, Secure IT. At that time, I had failed to raise VC funding. And the choice was either I don't do it or I do it with my own money. And thankfully, my wife was supportive of it. And we said we go all in. In fact, she quit her job too. She was working in Bell South at that time. And we said, burn the bridges behind, there's no turning back. And then we said, we had decided to pursue security services, internet security services, because it's a new area. People didn't know much about it at all. This was late 96, early 97. Then I said, how am I going to learn about all these firewalls? There's so many of them. We have limited resources. And after studying the market, I said, this checkpoint firewall coming from a beautiful, elegant user interface, Windows, all this stuff. We're going to just work with one provider, Checkpoint. And we're going to be the best in handling Checkpoint, better than anybody else. And so when customers will come and say, here's something I'm looking for, we'll look at all the firewalls. Here's the best one. We know it better than anybody else. And we'll deploy it. We'll stand behind it. Yes. And my competition will say, here are 10 firewalls we support. You pick one. We'll give you the one you want. We'll deploy one you want. Come on, customers aren't experts in it. We took that stuff away. So in some ways, we took a chance. Perhaps we lost one deal out of 10 because that one guy said you're biased towards Checkpoint. That's okay. In life, you don't win everything. That's okay. You make some bets. Those are some of the bets that have been useful. So in general, in my entrepreneurial journey, I like to focus on a few things and do them well. Don't try to spread yourself and say, I do everything. Because if you try to do everything, you won't do anything very well.
Right. I wanted to ask about one of your recent acquisitions. You bought managed detection and response vendor Red Canary earlier this year. Part of a reimagining of security that you've talked about with our security reporter, Kyle Allspack, as a second North Star for Zscaler. What do you think the future looks like in which SIM goes away, and what opportunities does that create?
Yeah, so when I think about market, we don't really think of security market. Here's a firewall, IPS. I believe the current market segments that have been in place for years will eventually go away. Okay. So when I started Zscaler, we kind of said we are the switchboard, the exchange, connecting users to applications. We call it zero trust for users. Then we took the same thing to workloads. Workloads are symbolized users. They talk to internet. They talk to each other. We took it and called it became zero trust for users. Then we took the branches. So each branch could become like an island and cafe, zero trust branches. Then customers wanted zero trust devices. We acquired AirGap for that. They gave us that. So we wanted to make sure we do zero trust everywhere. Even zero trust of B2B partners, because a lot of risks come from third-party partners and suppliers. So we rounded out, while lots of vendors try to say, yes, we do what Zscaler does, they're trying to really catch up on the user side of it. And other areas need to be done. That's one piece. Then our customers have been telling us, with all this, you're generating so much logs, so much telemetry. Why? And we send all this telemetry to Splunk or somewhere else. And I pay for that big lake. And then I got lots of analysts sitting there. Why can't you deliver more value and help us in that area? So it's with that notion in mind, we said we're going to work on disrupting security ops. We don't like to do things the way they have been done before because you're doing incrementally better. You're never going to win. You need to have something that's significantly different. Too many people start companies and say, I'm going to be 20% cheaper and faster. The incumbents are going to get there pretty soon. So you need to have some architecture level differentiation, or maybe some go-to-market differentiation. For small partners, it's hard to have go-to-market big differentiation. You can have relationships, but many partners have only relationships limited to a certain area. For us here, we bought a company called Avalar that actually takes all the logs and telemetry, synthesizes it, creates entity relationships. So now if you're dealing at a very different level to do SecOps than you do against a traditional SIEM. Then we needed the better front end. And Red Canary had built a beautiful agent technology that can do multiple tasks for security operations. So we said if we combine the two, we can offer a very disruptive security operations solution. Now, we are not becoming an MDR company. Okay, Red Canary is about 2% of our ARR. Yeah, still keep on offering that service, but a lot of our customers who are very large, they want to either own SecOps or work with someone, they already have a partner in mind. We make this solution available to our partners to offer as a managed service because we don't want to be in the services business. That distinction is pretty clear to us. So the biggest benefit we bring is our logs and telemetry flows. SecOps happens, we find stuff, it becomes a closed loop system to feed back to our exchange so we can stop bad things, and that kind of actions can be taken place. So it became the second North Star because we have only one North Star all along Zero Trust. The second is with all the data and telemetry, whether coming from us, a third party, being able to do a detection and response kind of services became our second big area. Since you asked me, there's two big areas, there's one third area we're betting on, and everyone has to deal with it, is AI security. Okay? We all have to deal with AI. It's happening. There's some hype around it. But even if you discount hype by 50%, it's still changing the world in many, many ways out there. And in that area, the biggest opportunity for us is extending our exchange to agents. Think of agentic exchange. For every employee, probably there'll be dozens of agents in every customer. And these agents are coming from company A, B, C. They're talking to each other. They are doing some real work, almost like human beings, or something even more than what human beings can do. How do you know which agent should access what? The CIO of S&P Global, a very smart guy, he came to me about 5 months ago. He said, I built 24 agents. Now, what are his agents? S&P Global provides business risk ratings to enterprises. And so they have experts available who can dial in to a conference call or join a real call physically with the CFO and his team of a large customer who is trying to make a decision about some financial transactions, maybe doing a debt instrument. And they want to know from S&P experts, what will be the impact of this transaction on my business risk? Now, S&P wants to offer that service by an agent. So they have agent for macroeconomics expert. They have an agent who specializes in Japan and economics out there. They want the agent to dial in by Zoom call and join a meeting with the CF and the rest of the stuff and converse and make recommendations. It's not fully real today. He's now launching it because he's worried about there's no security in place to make sure who is calling in is the right agent, wrong agent. Imagine, what we have done, we have done this thing for users. It's natural for us to extend it for agents kind of stuff. Identity will play a role, authorization, all that kind of stuff has to be done. So these are some of our big areas and initiatives as the world moves toward agentic AI.
Yeah. I'll ask this one more and then I'll give it to you, Steve. In regards to agentic AI, what do partners need to be doing now to really prepare for a future where they can secure all these different scenarios you just talked about? It's really that supply chain issue we talked about earlier, where how can you secure your supplier's supplier? How can you secure your agent's agent?
Absolutely. The world is getting complex. While agents and AI will automate many things, but the technology is moving so fast, there'll be more and more help needed. I think understanding some of these new agentic technologies and approaches becomes the starting point. If you need to provide services, you'll need to get good at it. But don't try to expand in all areas. Narrow down in a given area. Try to get good at it, because customers are looking for help as well. As things are moving at a faster pace, sometimes people wonder, they worry about, are agents going to take away jobs? Okay. It's a good question, but if you look at historically, technology has taken away jobs, but technology has created more and more jobs out there. Right? 30 years ago, whenever it was, they said, oh, a spreadsheet is going to take away all the accounting jobs, because right? It hasn't. It's created a lot more jobs. So I think there'll be newer jobs, but the question is that mundane jobs will become smaller and smaller. The next level jobs will be bigger and bigger. There'll be more opportunities. Narrow down, link it to the areas of focus you have in your business. If the security is a given area, your certain applications, how can you help your customers deploy, monitor performance, policy setting? There will be plenty of work to be done, and that's where you need to get good at. But try to be a little bit focused rather than trying to go too broad.
Okay, I lied. I'm going to ask one more and then you can have it. You talked about these mundane jobs going away. How do you, I see this in coding specifically, like there's a lot of talk about if the entry-level coding jobs go away. How do you then get to that next level employee who hasn't had that entry-level job to build up their services and their skills? How do you build out that bench?
It's true, but it's almost, if you think about some of the stuff, when you had to build computer systems 30 years ago, you actually needed to know various chips and how you bring the chips together. Today, they are building blocks. Similarly, I don't think future programmers need to know all the coding, assembly languages, and all this stuff out there. They start building blocks. They'll be going through training, but you don't have to go through the basic training. Maybe a simple example I'll give you is, there was a time during my high school days, math was so important. You need to be able to know numbers and tables, and all those things were very, very important. Who cares about numbers and tables anymore, right? The systems and all doing all this stuff for us. So some of the basic stuff, you don't need to do it. You need to take the next level of stuff. Automation still can only be done when things are clear. Creative thinking still comes from human beings. Human beings will play a big role a long, long time. There's always one of those debates out there. It's good to think about it, but I think that's probably far, far away. I would focus on learning, making an impact on the business I'm in, and then worry about the rest down the road.
Great. Jay, you've revamped your channel go-to-market model dramatically to a more consultative approach since hiring ServiceNow veteran Mike Rich as president of global sales. What kind of evolution has that precipitated in the Zscaler channel model? And as you become a platform company, what's the next evolution you see for these channel partners out here?
Right. So what we are doing is, our customers don't want point products. They want a solution that can solve from end to end. Yes, the term platform is widely used, but the term platform has been abused. Do you know a vendor out there who doesn't have a platform?
Yeah, right.
Everyone has a platform. And some vendors go on a buying spree. And once they buy 8 companies, they say, I got a platform. I was talking to CTO of a large retailer with 1,800 stores, and he said, I was sold a platform by this security provider. Once I tried to deploy it, I found that it is 8 different products. A little bit is the facade of UI in the front.
Yeah.
As we click, there are 8 policy engines and everything. He said, but I got one benefit. I had to pay 1 bill rather than 8 bills. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only benefit I got from this platform. So needless to say, he kicked the vendor out and decided to went for the better solution. But there's a value in platform. If they integrated, they work well with each other. And from early on, we have always kind of believed in integrated platform. When we have done acquisitions, we have generally done early stage acquisition where we can integrate stuff together and make it. But the bigger the platform, more deployment services you need to deploy. In Zscaler, first we used to have users going to internet, data access, DLP, cybersecurity,
Right.
identity had to be done. Then we moved to private application access. Here we had to eliminate VPNs, the DMZs out there, segmentation. There are lots and lots of services that need to be done. Customers want consultative discussion where we can show them what can be done, how you simplify, things you can eliminate. The things you eliminate also pay for actually the project you may be getting to. So we are focused on working with customers to show them to go from state A to state B. It's generally a phased journey. There are services needed. And Mike's focus was consultative, C-level engagement with showing them the services that can be done. And the helper partners, we are actually doing a good job. I wish we had more partners who picked up more services-led stuff. A lot of partners who came from box selling background have taken longer to get to the level they get to. I mean, that's where my message would be. Think beyond the traditional stuff and think about the broad set of services that customer can have. And you don't have to go all the way here. Related services that are interdependent upon each other that can help customers with faster deployment and reduce their cost and all this. It's very doable. That's what we are trying to do. Most of our proposals include cost takeout. And a big part of cost takeout is elimination of a lot of those point products. And you as partners will play an important role in that area.
Jay, to that point, where are you making the biggest investments to get partners to make that leap into more services?
Yep. So first of all, we have been investing in education for our customers. We have proper training classes on deployment. How do you effectively deploy these things? Then there's actually ongoing policy reviews and all this stuff needs to be done. Then we actually offer even shadowing program where a customer's partners can shadow for the first few deployments. All those things are part of it. In fact, I have a sizable team, pretty sizable team. That's job that gets paid on making sure our partners are successful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to talk about a little bit about the hyperscaler marketplaces because they've become such a big engine of sales growth for partners. What kind of channel sales trends are you seeing there with regard to the hyperscaler marketplaces? And what kind of opportunity do you see there for partners and how are you incenting?
You mean hyperscaler as like technology provider or hyperscaler as fulfillment through marketplace?
Fulfillment through the marketplace.
Yeah.
And the cloud credit model even.
Right.
And the amazing amount of sales that are being driven through that without the partners having to get a purchase order.
Yes, so I muse about it and I wonder, where is this headed?
Yeah.
Where does it come from, right? I'll give you my views.
Good.
Right? I mean, hyperscalers wanted to use the spend.
Yeah.
And they said, do it fulfillment through me. And I'll take only a point or two. And then there was unused credits because during those early days, CIOs signed up for $100 million spent per year, $200 million spent per year. They couldn't use all of it. Then they said, oh, Mr. Customer, you can buy a Zscaler or whatever for it. That used to be a bigger issue 2 years ago. I mean, which CIO should be sitting out there and saying, I got $100 million to spend, I'm only spent $70 million, let $30 million go to waste. No one does. Most of the unused credits have gone away. When I talk to CIOs, I ask them, hey, what's the, is unused credit an opportunity? They said, no, they used to be. It's becoming less and less. But they have been drawing it. But I think I'm seeing the tide turning. They essentially are trying to act almost like a distributor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now they're basically saying, I will only let you do it if you run your service on my cloud.
Yeah.
Okay. So to some degree, you bring them on, then when you got them, they kind of change the game. So I think one has to be very careful about what needs to be done. So I would rather work with partners who add value to make my customer successful.
Yeah.
Okay. We do fulfillment sometimes because credit used to be an issue. Now there are fewer issues with credit. Now they give you some marketing dollars to say, here's some marketing dollars because they're trying to bring you in. But personally, I would rather have a partner who works with a customer to make our solution successful.
Yeah.
That's my personal preference.
Good. I'm going to give it to you, Jen, to end.
I'll take the last one.
Yeah.
You have founded 5 companies, as we mentioned earlier, including Zscaler, and I would imagine that level of success requires a certain level of confidence. Can you talk about how you taught yourself to be a risk taker?
I'm an accidental CEO. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. Okay. There's no book and plan I had to really build a company. Some of you know, I was born and raised in a tiny village in the foothill of the Himalayas in northern India. And we got running water. No, we got electricity after I finished my 8th grade, running water after I finished my 10th grade. I was just a good student, loved to learn and study. So I was always number 1 in my state, in my school and district, whatever. So I got into IITs. And in fact, I chose engineering by accident because my teacher said, hey, there are 2 good professions. Medical is 1, engineering is 2. And I didn't like to deal with blood, so engineering it was. Right? And then when I got admission, there's a list of majors to take: mechanical, chemical, electrical, metallurgical, and all. And I looked at this thing called electronics engineering. Look, it dealt with television, radio, radar. I said, that sounds interesting. That's why my bachelor's degree was electronics engineering. But I was a good student. I was almost always number 1. And then I came to the U.S. to do my master's, just like lots of people do. U.S. universities, the best universities for engineering. I came to University of Cincinnati, Ohio, because they gave me a scholarship. Otherwise, I couldn't come. In fact, the other story is I would have almost missed coming here because I couldn't afford to buy a ticket, and there's no loans. I almost gave up. Then I kind of tried looking, researching. And that's probably one quality. Once I get after it, I don't give up. I found a Tata loan scholarship for study abroad. They'll give 25 scholarships. And what was the scholarship? One-way ticket to your university town and $200. Okay. Here I landed in Cincinnati. I did my master's in electrical and computer engineering and got a job right there with a small startup which offered me a summer internship. So I thought I'll be a software engineer for the rest of my life because that's what I was. Till one day in this small startup, our only sales engineer called in sick. And my boss said, hey, you should do a demo since you wrote the system. I never done a demo. I never talked to a customer. I was 24 years old at that time. I prepared. The demo went pretty well. As I drove home that night, I said, wow, that was a lot more fun than writing code all day long. I mean, that's when I said, I need to move to a customer-facing role. I called IBM in Cincinnati. They were looking for someone in an engineering background, so I got a job for sales. IBM, Unisys, NCR would get out of my training. I thought I'll be part of the corporate world and moved up the ladder. And then I moved to Atlanta with a small software company, IQ Software, as a public company, as a number 2 man there. And then I stumbled across, this is 95, 96, this Netscape going public, Mozilla browser, World Wide Web. I was fascinated by it. And I said, you can access information without any special software, just a simple browser. That's wonderful. That should change the world. But if it does, then everything will connect to everything. Security, cybersecurity could become an issue. And as I read about Mark Andreessen, the founder of Netscape, I said, this young guy who had just graduated from Urbana-Champaign, UIUC, if he could do a startup, why shouldn't I do a startup? That was the idea of germination of startup. Wow. And my wife and I talked about it. And that's what led me to do these things. So I think what have I learned? Okay. One, I think ability to take some risks is a good thing. Okay. Don't just hang on. It's a good thing to try out. The world is big. Sure, you do some calculated risk, you do your homework. That's wonderful. And also focus on a few things. And once you focus, you go deep, you understand the stuff. The more you understand, the more conviction you build. Once you have the conviction, the passion comes along, and then you start having fun. I think that's how I looked at it. And also, the other thing I looked at is, it's all in our mind. It's all a perspective, right? Many times people think, man, startups can be so hard. I make so many sacrifices for it. But all those sacrifices are state of mind. While you think about it, if you think human beings, if you think here's a challenge, human beings like challenges. You go after it. When it's a challenge, naturally you're facing obstacles. But there's no challenge. If it just happens, it's a cakewalk. You take it well, and then in strides you make progress. And if you say, man, how hard, how tough it is, then everything is negative. I learned to be a positive attitude drive. I can tell you early on when I moved to IBM, I thought sales couldn't be that hard. Okay, it was hard. Okay, I thought I could explain the solution, but sales is far more than just knowing the solution. And when I would get lots of rejections, customer hanging up, when you dial and they hang up, and then I got to a mindset and say, man, I got such a wonderful solution to sell. This person is just missing on an opportunity to buy such a great solution. There's another one who is going to appreciate the opportunity. Yeah. And then you go from there. But the last point I'll make is, I think the team is very, very important. We all have only 24 hours in a day. Finding the best of best, bring them along, treat them fairly, looking at your customers fairly, looking for a win-win partnership always goes a long, long way. So my number one job as a CEO is to find people who are passionate, who are driven, who want to really make a difference in the world, and then they have fun at Zscaler.
I can tell you're having fun at Zscaler, and I really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing all your insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.